sit, stay home. Hope you're doing well and staying safe and having a wonderful, 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 spectacular day, night, wherever you are. Before we start, please consider clicking subscribe, and leaving me a like and a comment. Thank you so very much. Today, I am just going to be doing a little whispered ramble, a little bit of hurricane facts, especially since we are going to be having a hurricane come through Florida in the next few days. So I wanted to just read about a bunch of these, and included in this wonderful ramble is a list of names, because I'm going to be reading off prior hurricane names. So without further ado, please sit back, and relax and enjoy this wonderful, wonderful video. Now, typically I use my ring light. I am usually facing a different way. I'm not having the window light coming in. I needed something so I could read my wonderful write-up. This is like 8 pages worth that I'm going to be rambling on and on about. I have been through several hurricanes in my life, and as a matter of fact, my grandmother was involved in the very, very devastating hurricane of 1992 in Homestead, Florida, in the lower part of Florida. That was called Hurricane Andrew, and I do clearly remember hearing about the devastation and what exactly occurred during that time. I was also very grateful and blessed that my grandfather had built the house that they lived in, because it was one of the only standing houses left in that neighborhood. The other ones were demolished. Now, of course, my grandmother's windows were blown out and the house was flooded, so really, it really doesn't matter. They didn't stay there. They all had to evacuate, but it was just a very traumatic time, but also a time of strength and courage and resilience. So I clearly remember that one, and we have been through other ones that, again, the only real thing that we have missed during these hurricanes is power. We have a generator, so we boot that up afterwards, and we are able to resume power after the hurricane or bad weather has passed. So we're fairly prepared. We have a nice little non-perishable stash of food, nothing crazy, but enough to get us through at least a week or two. So with that, let me go ahead and I'm going to ramble on about hurricane facts. These are very interesting. At the end of the video, I'm going to be whispering all of the retired hurricane names. And a lot of these names are names that I haven't even heard of till now, which is interesting. So let's go ahead. Of course, I'm wearing my readers, because even though my font is huge, I still need them, which is crazy. Okay. Typical hurricanes are about 300 miles wide, although they can vary considerably in size, which means these storms can cause damage over a huge swath of land once they reach the coast. The flooding they cause can extend the damage even further from the center of the storm. The eye at the hurricane center is relatively calm, clear area approximately 20 to 40 miles across. It's amazing. The eye wall surrounding the eye is composed of dense clouds that contain the highest winds in the storm. Hurricanes need warm ocean water and moist air to form. This is a good one. Hurricanes are known by different names in different parts of the world. In the United States, they're known as hurricanes, but in northern Pacific and Philippines, they are called typhoons. People in the Indian and South Pacific ocean regions call them cyclones. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale gives hurricanes a rating from 1 to 5 based on wind speed. A category has winds between 74 and 95 miles per hour, whereas a Category 5 storm has winds of 157 miles per hour or higher. The one in the Hurricane Andrew that hit my grandmother's house, I believe, had 215 winds, 215 miles per hour winds. The scale does not account for rainfall, flooding, and storm surges, which can also be deadly. Anything below a Category 1 is a tropical storm, not a hurricane. Tropical storms like hurricanes can sometimes spawn tornadoes within the storm system. This usually happens either near the eye wall where intense thunderstorms develop or well away from the storm center. It is the thunderstorms that accompany these storms that create the right conditions for a tornado. Interesting. Now this is where I got confused because I just said that Hurricane Andrew had sustained winds of 215, but I got it confused with this next tidbit. The fastest hurricane. What was the fastest? It was Patricia. Now, where was Patricia? I didn't even look further. With maximum sustained winds of 215 miles per hour, Patricia is the most intense tropical cyclone ever observed in the Western Hemisphere. Excuse me, I gotta start over and edit that because I had a tropical disturbance called a sneeze that just came up. Okay, 4 stages of hurricanes. Tropical disturbance, tropical disturbance, tropical depression, tropical depression, tropical storm, and a full-fledged tropical cyclone. Very interesting. Is a hurricane a water tornado? Other than both being rotating storms that cause mass destruction, tornadoes and hurricanes have nothing in common. For one thing, they have different beginnings. Tornadoes form over land, while hurricanes form over water. Very interesting. Now, this next little tidbit I did look up just to see the whole history of the storm, and it was very interesting. The deadliest hurricane, the Galveston Hurricane of 1900, also known as the Great Galveston Hurricane, this is in Texas, stands as one of the most destructive and deadly hurricanes in U.S. history, with an estimated maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour. That was in Texas. Alright. Hurricanes whip up gigantic waves at sea, but it seems they could also cause even more dangerous monsters to crash to shore. Researchers at U.S. Naval Research Laboratory, based at the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi, think hurricanes can pile up sediment underwater that could slip, causing a tsunami. That's creepy. That makes sense. Hurricane names. Initially, all hurricanes were given female names. This changed in 1979 when male names were added to the list. Today, storms receive names in alphabetical order as they form. Can hurricanes be named twice? The naming of North Atlantic tropical cyclones is currently under the oversight of the Hurricane Committee of the World Meteorological Organization, WMO. This group maintains 6 alphabetic lists of 21 names, with one list used each year. This normally results in each name being reused every 6 years. Interesting. Hurricanes can and do cause snowfall in the mountains of the eastern United States when their moisture moves into cold air. Enough in the autumn season. Hurricane Wilma in 2005 and Hurricane Sandy in 2012 produced snowfall in this manner. Interesting. I am hot. It is so hot in this little corner with this window open. Holy cow. I even have my air conditioner on. It's so hot. Goodness gracious. Okay. 27 days. In early 2023, Freddie traveled more than 5,000 miles from Indonesia to Africa before eventually wreaking havoc in Madagascar and Mozambique. Interesting. The most tornadoes spawned by a single tropical cyclone during Hurricane Ivan, which caused 120 twisters to touch down in 2013. It's crazy. Hurricane Harvey dropped more than 60 inches of rain on Texas in August 2017, setting a new rainfall record for tropical cyclones in the United States and causing severe flooding. The entire Houston region was inundated by more than 2 feet of rain. The energy used by the entire human race up to 1990 was only 20% of the power in the average hurricane. That is crazy. That is crazy. The countries that have experienced the most landfalls of tropical cyclones equivalent to hurricane strength in the satellite era, which spans the last 50 years, are China, the Philippines, Japan, Mexico, and the United States. There have been 6 films in the last 100 years titled Hurricane or The Hurricane. That's funny. Okay, now we're going to get to names now. I'm going to go by the decade, and then these are the names that were retired. They're not all the names that actually came through. They're the names that they can't use these names again. Okay, so, and I'll start with the 1950s. Between 1954 and 1959, 8 names were deemed significant enough to be retired for 10 years. Okay, for 10 years only, due to their impact, before being permanently retired after 1969. So here they are. Let's see if any of your names are in this whole batch of names. Okay, ready? Carol, Edna, Hazel, Connie, Diane, Ione, I don't know if it's Ione or Ione, Janet, and Audrey. In 1960, 4 rotating lists of names were developed to avoid having to create new lists each year, while the practice of retiring any particularly damaging storm names for 10 years continued, with 11 names deemed significant enough to be retired during this decade. Here are the names. Ready? Donna, Carla, Hattie, Flora, Cleo, Dora, Hilda, Betsy, Inez, Beulah, Camille. Starting in 1979, the WMO began assigning both male and female names to tropical cyclones. This decade featured Hurricanes David and Frederick, the first male Atlantic hurricane names to be retired. During this decade, 9 storms were deemed significant enough to have their names retired. Together, these 9 systems caused at least $9.41 billion in damage. Here are the names. Ready? Celia, Agnes, Carmen, Fifi, Eloise, Anita, Greta, David, and Frederick. After control of naming hurricanes was turned over to the WMO's Hurricane Committee during the mid-1970s, the 1980s marked the least prolific decade in terms of number of retired storms, with 7 names warranting removal. Alan, Alicia, Elena, Gloria, Gilbert, Joan, and Hugo. During the 1990s, the Atlantic Ocean moved into its active era, which led to more tropical cyclones forming during hurricane seasons. This decade featured deadliest hurricane on record. 15 names were retired during this time frame. Diana, Klaus, Bob, Andrew, Louise, Marilyn, Opal, Roxanne, Caesar, Fran, Hortense, Georges. I don't know if it looks like George with an S on the end. Georges. I've never even heard of that name. Mitch, Floyd, and Lenny. I love L names. After the Atlantic basin had moved into the warm phase of the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation during the mid-1990s, the 2000s marked the most prolific decade in terms of the number of retired storms, with 24 warranting removal. Okay, here are the names. Keith, Allison, Iris, Michelle, Isidore, Lily, Fabian, Isabel, Juan, Charlie, Francis, Ivan, Jean, Dennis, Katrina, Rita, Stan, Wilma, Dean, Felix, Noel, Gustav, Ike, and Paloma. Some of the most devastating hurricanes to hit the United States in recorded history did so in the 2010s, a decade in which 30 named storms were classified as major hurricanes out of 152 named hurricanes. Together, 16 tropical cyclone names were retired during the 2010s. Igor, Tomas, Irene, Sandy, Ingrid, Erica, Joaquin, Matthew, Otto, Harvey, Irma, Maria, Nate, Florence, Michael, and Dorian. And so far in the 2020s, only 6 tropical cyclone names have been retired, and they are Laura, Edda, Iota, Ida, Fiona, and Ian. That is very interesting. It is just amazing what these natural systems can do. It is just crazy. So, if you can turn on the tube and find out what the scoop is with Hurricane Helene moving up through the Gulf. We are in Florida and we're over towards the west coast. So we are going to get some rain. We are not going to get anything damaging, I don't believe. The hurricane is supposed to hit as a Category 3 up, a little bit further up from us, I believe, and I'm hoping and praying, as I always do, that everybody is safe and prepared. The thing is, we can only be prepared as we are. You know, if people are not watching the news or paying attention to advisories or paying attention to evacuations, it's only as good as our preparations. So I'm hoping and praying that everybody prepares and are safe, and I am so grateful to everybody that works in the industry to get everything like electric back up with power, all the resources that we have